here. She's a molecular biologist who did her undergraduate work at the College of New Jersey. She then went to Temple for her PhD, and she's now coming to us from UPenn, where she leads the first exposure to research in biological science program. I assume you call it FIRBS, but
Yeah.
okay, great. The FIRBS program over there. She's going to tell us a little about her journey, but then she's also going to have a couple students from the program come up and do a panel as well. So thank you so much for putting this all together. And take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having me and some of our fellows join you all today. My talk is entitled From the Bench to Empowering the Next Generation. And really, this is a story of my own path through science and kind of all the twists and turns it took along the way. Okay, but before we get started, I just want to map out the journey we're about to take, starting with my first spark of how I first got interested in research when I was a freshman in college, where I kind of had to pivot from what I thought I wanted to do into something different. The first harsh rejection I've ever received, and then to finally when I became a scientist and what exactly it is that I'm doing now. So first, I want you to picture me as a freshman, shown here. This is actually still at the College of New Jersey's website on their biology page. So I was convinced that I wanted to be a physician. I loved my AP biology classes. I loved STEM classes. I had Caribbean immigrant parents who were very stern about me wanting to be a doctor. So that was the plan. However, first few weeks into my college journey, when I was a freshman, I went to a talk that was given by one of my professors where she talked about the research that she was doing in her lab. So I was sitting there like you guys are now, sitting in the background being like, I don't really know what research is or that this is something that someone can actually do. Unlike you all in the audience, I didn't have an experience like this in high school. This was really my first time even hearing about research. So after she gave her talk, I decided to have a conversation with her after the lecture that she gave and asked some questions, told her that I was interested, and she invited me to join a program called the Gateway to Research Careers, which at the time was a program for underrepresented students who were interested in research and didn't really know how to get their bearings along the way. So I first stepped foot in a research lab working in a fruit fly genetics lab. And this, again, was my very first experience. And just to give you a little touch of what I was doing in my freshman year, I studied the fruit fly life cycle, otherwise known as Drosophila, where we start at a fertilized egg to an embryo all the way to an adult fruit fly. And the basics of my research was on that stage of when the egg becomes fertilized and how that process happens. And what I thought was really cool about my first research experience is that I wasn't just a student following around and watching. I really got to be involved in the process and learn the cutting edge techniques that they were doing. So I learned something called confocal microscopy, which was very high tech at the time form of microscope. And what we're looking at here is the stage right before an egg becomes fertilized is the oocyte of the fruit fly. And what we're looking at right now are the different egg chambers. In the blue, here's the nuclei, and in the green is the structures of the egg. And all of these chambers feed the oocyte so that it can become a fertilized egg. And I don't know if you're thinking what I was thinking at this point in time when I was 18. I thought it was cool what I was doing, and it was cool to learn techniques and be involved in a new environment. I didn't care about fruit flies. I didn't care about fruit flies. I didn't care about the process, but I really liked the lab that I was in. I liked the people. I liked the environment. And I really liked asking scientific questions and working on finding an answer. But here's where things started to get a little bit tricky, or also known as the struggle. Organic chemistry was really hard for me. I wasn't doing as well in my STEM classes as I would have liked to, and my grades were taking a tumble. I started really questioning if medicine was the career for me, or maybe I wasn't sure if I was cut out for this whole STEM journey at all. And again, I liked being in a research lab, but I didn't really care about the research that I was doing. So I had a whole conversation with my academic advisor about this, and she suggested that, hey, well, if you think you like research, maybe you just need to try it in a different environment to see maybe this it could be what you like. You just don't like exactly what you're doing. So she encouraged me to apply for something like an REU or a research experience for undergrads, which I believe some of you in the room might be doing right now. And that's where I landed at Johns Hopkins for my first summer research experience outside of the College of New Jersey. And here I was able to study sex differences in the heart function after injury. So your heart, after it feels an injury like a heart attack or you have high blood pressure, what happens to the heart and how does it repair after injury? And this is when I realized, wow, what I really love is translational science. That for me, in order to really love research, I liked that it was still clinically focused. So after this experience I had over the summer and speaking to my advisors about it, they advised me, I think you'd actually be really great for grad school. So instead of med school, I think you'd be a really great scientist. And I was like, wow. Again, this wasn't exactly what I was thinking about on my career trajectory, but I was up for the challenge. So during college, we're now junior, senior year, I'm applying to grad programs. I decided I want to be a scientist and I'm going to go get my doctorate and host my own lab. So I'm applying to different PhD programs. I'm still kind of waiting to hear back from a few. So I decided to send an email and say, hey, I just submitted my application. I'm just trying to hear back on if you have any updates for me. And clearly this still left a mark because I have word for word what the response I received was. We have voted to decline your application package. It was noted that too many undergrad courses have grades under B, which does not bode well for the PhD applicant. We are sorry we can't be more encouraging, and we hope that you can locate a doctoral program that is a better fit for your academic background and interests. Ouch. I was crushed. I completely changed what I wanted to do. And now here I'm getting this harsh letter. I didn't know what to do. But this was only the beginning. I applied to 8 different programs, and 5 of them wanted me in their PhD program. And here's a lesson I want you all to take away from this conversation. And this isn't a number game, so I'm not trying to boast like, oh, I got into 5 PhD programs anyway. That's not what I'm trying to do here. The moral of the story is that your grades aren't everything. There's more that's encompassing to you than what your transcript is. So here in my senior year of college, I had 4 years of research under my belt, a summer internship that led to a publication, and there were institutions that knew that I would be successful as a scientist. So after graduating from the College of New Jersey, I started my PhD at Temple School of Medicine and moved here to Philadelphia. What was cool about Temple specifically is that even though I worked at a med school, I was still pursuing a doctorate in biomedical sciences. So everything that I was doing on the bench related to what they were doing in the hospital that's right across the street. And that was super exciting for me. And grad school, it taught me the science, it taught me the rigor, how to be a researcher, and it also taught me important questions to ask about myself along the way. Here, similar to my experience at Johns Hopkins, I got to learn all about cardiovascular disease, and I specifically studied diseases of the arteries or your blood vessels and how your blood vessels function after injury. We're going to take an even closer look. At the very top, you'll see you see my mouse? Yeah. At the very top, you'll see an aorta, which is the largest artery in the body. If we were to cut that aorta in half, then you'd see a cross section here of the different layer of muscle that make up your artery. Going down to the muscle layer, it's made up of multiple cells. So they're called smooth muscle cells. And even down to the nanometer layer, we can look at the different structures that make up the cell or the cytoskeleton. And that was what my whole dissertation was about, if I had to boil it down into one figure. But I was really interested in these cells called vascular smooth muscle cells. And on the left here, you'll see what cells look like when they're wall type and they're happy. And this is what we use as our control. You can see they have these large arching fibers that help them contract and help the blood move around your body. And on the right is what these cells look like after an injury, like a heart attack, or you have high blood pressure and something's damaging those vessels. You can see that these cells are smaller and their fibers are shorter. And I was interested in what was the pathway that made this happen. And I spent 5 years dedicated to studying that result. And here I am at the end. I get a doctorate. I'm super excited. These are my parents. And I have a little note here from my dissertation because I dedicated my dissertation to my immigrant parents. And at this point in time, I got the PhD. I thought I wanted to be a professor. I wanted to be a professor, have my own lab, host students in my lab like I did, like I was a student in their lab. But something about this just wasn't sitting right for me. I couldn't see myself doing this for the rest of my time here on Earth, I guess. And for the first time, I realized that no one had mapped out what the next step was for me. So far, even though I changed my mind on what exactly it was I wanted to do, the path wasn't linear anymore. It wasn't an obvious next step. So I had to make a decision for myself on what are we doing and where are we going to take this career now? So after I graduated from Temple, I took my first position as a field application scientist. So essentially, I was a scientist that worked for a company that sold pieces of scientific equipment, like a microscope, for example. So my job was to understand how that microscope works, teach other people how to use it, help them with their experimental design and learn how to design their studies. If it breaks or someone doesn't know what to do, I was the one who went out to go fix it. And I got to meet over hundreds of scientists across the East Coast, from Maine down to Florida. And my company was based in England, so I got to go to Europe and work in England here and there. And this was a really satisfying job for me. And I got to learn a whole different type of science of now I've seen the researcher side, but now I have to learn how can the science actually be applied and learn how to teach a technology as opposed to the research I've been doing for 5 years. And I got to learn what research or science can look like outside of an academic institution. And hopefully this is a theme you see along the way, is that at each point in my trajectory, I had a very honest point of reflection with myself. Where here, I enjoyed what I was doing. Won't lie, I was making decent money, so I loved that part as well. However, I just wasn't feeling satisfied, and I was tired. Every week I was in a new city. Maybe if I was in my early 20s or fresh out of college, this would have been a different experience for me. But as I was reaching 30 years old, I was like, this is just not sustainable in what I wanted to do. So I knew this wasn't going to be a long-term fit per se, but I wasn't exactly sure, once again, what my next step was going to be. So on a whim, I'm scrolling on LinkedIn. I'm not really searching for jobs or anything like that, but I did see something that caught my mind. I saw a job position that was looking for an associate director of the FIRBS program. What is FIRBS? We'll get to that in a moment. They were looking for someone with a scientific background whose whole job would be dedicated to supporting students. And as I even read more and more about the program, about getting students in labs during their freshman year and supporting them along the way, I thought to myself, this is kind of what I did when I was in college my freshman year, except a more structured program than what I was actually doing. So similar to the story I'm telling you all right now, I decided to take a chance and just wrote an email to the faculty director and shared with her the exact story that I'm sharing with you all right now. And after hearing me out, she decided that I was indeed the best fit for the job of the person they were looking for. So the moral of the story here is that shoot your shot. Whether you think you are not prepared, you think you're not qualified, you're not sure what you want to do or what the next step might be, you have nothing to lose by just putting yourself out there. But back to FIRBS. What is this program that now I work as the associate director for? FIRBS, or the First Exposure to Research in Biological Sciences, is a research program here at the University of Pennsylvania that guides undergrads from their first few weeks of college, places them into a research laboratory, and they typically work in that research laboratory or another one for their whole duration in college. And it's not just about the research here in firms, it's about building a community. So we're here in a cohort-based program where each cohort has 20 students. I actually brought 3 of them here to talk with you all, one from each cohort. And I think what makes FIRB special is that it's, again, not just the research, but in FIRBS, we're building leaders of the next generation. And each student here is involved in a community outreach project, which I think is really meaningful. And you'll hear from the students themselves on what they think. But I hope that when students enter the program and they leave, they have a new sense of confidence. So one of the questions I get asked often, especially from my own students, it's like, hey, Amanda, so you have a PhD and you have a doctorate, but you're not working in a research lab now. So what about all that training that you did? Do you actually use it now? And the answer is yes. I still use the skills that I learned as a researcher every day. It's just a bit repurposed, such as troubleshooting. Whether students are stuck with an experiment, they're stuck with an interaction with their mentor, this is something that I literally do every day on working with students. Learning how to communicate science. Many of our first year students have never read a scientific paper before, so being able to translate complicated material into something a freshman can understand. And with almost 80 students in our program, they're all working on completely vastly different research projects. So having a scientific background helps me understand, oh, that's what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Relationship building from my last job, where I worked with hundreds of scientists. Now each student works in a lab and they have mentors, and there are PIs or principal investigators involved. So learning how to interact with different kinds of people. And the data analysis is still there, it just looks different. So tracking student outcomes and program impact so that we're able to get funding or make publications about our program. So really what I want you to also take away from this is what you can learn by being a researcher. One, curiosity. Asking good questions matters way more than knowing the answer to anything. Having a sense of resilience. Your experiments fail, and chances are they'll fail time and time again. It's knowing how you can fall back down and get back up again without feeling discouraged. Collaboration, the ability to work well across teams, and of course, to communicate to others. With science and research as a whole, what you're doing in the lab only really matters if you can explain it to others what you're doing, whether it's your family members, your church, people in your community, so that they understand why your research is impactful. So now that I'm looking at the audience, at all of you, here are things that I wish I could have told myself when I was sitting in your shoes. The first thing is you don't have to have it all figured out, especially right now. You just have to be willing to take the next step to continue going. A closed door isn't the end of the story. It's just a redirection. We weren't supposed to go down that way. Turn another way, and again, keep going. The scientists that you're all meeting right now and you admire and you're like, wow, they're so smart. I have no idea how they know all of these things. They once were exactly where you are right now. Say yes to the thing that scares you a little bit. Don't be so scared that you're not willing to take on the challenge. Ask for help when you need it. Again, the best scientists you know still ask for help from their collaborators. And if you zoned out this whole conversation and you need to know, oh, what do I actually need to take away from this? Whatever your path is, whether it's in STEM, it's in science, you want to work at a laboratory, you want to teach, or with AI these days, who knows? Maybe the job you have 10 years from now, I can't even imagine what that job may be. You belong here. and you already belong in the room. Thank you so much. And if anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer questions. I also brought 3 students, if you guys can come on up. We have Hillary, Hankai, and Doreen, who are FERBS fellows, and you guys can come sit. But before we begin, any questions?
How did you decide that you wanted, I know you're gonna talk a little bit about it, but like how did you kind of like move from the idea of being a physician to like research?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think for me, I wanted to do something I was really good at. So when I was in the research lab, or even in my chemistry and biology classes, like there's laboratories in those classes, even though my grades weren't so hot in the lectures, they were always really good in the lab. And for me, I think that helped guided my choice because and this isn't a good reason to not want to go to med school if you want to go to med school, but for me, I can't memorize something to save my life. Like, this is just a fact that I know about myself that I can't memorize things, and that's just not how I learn effectively. And that means med school is going to be a very difficult path for me. But research, it allowed me to think in a different way. Like, oh, I understood the cell cycle when I could look in my plate of cells and see the cells divide with my own eyes under the microscope. So it was just a different fact of learning. And I liked that I was good at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you know master's before applying to a PhD program?
That's a great question. For the program I joined, no. So I joined straight from college into my PhD program that is different here in the United States versus some European PhD programs. Like if you wanted to get your PhD in Europe, you do need a master's beforehand. It could vary by program, but for my biology program, how my program was structured was that the first 2 years are kind of like a master's degree because the first 2 years you're spent in classes, you're still working in a research lab, but you're taking classes the whole time. Then after the 2 years, you take something called a candidacy exam, where essentially if you pass the exam, you continue with your PhD. And if you fail the exam, you leave with a master's because you did the coursework for it. So short answer for my specific program, I did not. That's something you're interested in. You can look into programs you might be interested in. But my non-biased opinion is no, I don't think it's necessary if you have the experience behind it. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to these 3. So maybe first you can introduce yourself, tell me your major, and tell me in one sentence what your research is about. Go.
My name is Doreen. I am a rising senior, and I major in neuroscience with minors in chemistry and math. And basically, my research is all about just tracking little like proteins in a cell with like a big microscope and seeing how like the proteins interact with each other.
Hi guys, my name is Hong Kai. I'm a rising junior and I major in biology. So I recently switched lab. So I have a brand new research project right now, which is basically looking at ApoE protein and which is basically like a protein that transports fat and cholesterol in the bloodstream and how that relates to HIV when it comes to neurodegenerative diseases. Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Hillary. I'm a rising sophomore and I major in biology and minor in healthcare management and neuroscience. And my lab is focused in the treatment of sickle cell disease, and we essentially test different drugs and we see how they work to treat with blood samples from sickle patients and healthy patients. And recently our lab is also focused on establishing different machineries that we use. So that's what I've been working on today.
Awesome. Do any of you know what you want to do after college?
Yes, so I currently actually decided this summer that I'm probably going to take a gap year. And after that, I would like to go to medical school. And even though I am going to medical school, I still want to do some form of research. So with that, I have decided to get also like look at programs that do combined master's programs so that I can still have like the proper like research experience.
For me, I would say I'm pretty lucky because ever since I was in early high school, I already knew what I wanted to become, which is a dentist, because I've always loved playing video games. Well, obviously, playing video games is not going to make me a lot of money. But I was like, what's a job that I can use my hand and challenge my critical thinking skills and still be like constantly active, which is like dentistry or like surgeon. But I feel like I can't handle pressure that well when it comes to surgery, so dentistry it is. So I actually applied to like this program called 7-year Dental program, which you guys probably did not hear about, never heard of. But essentially it's like 3 years of college and then I go straight into dental school. But fortunately when I applied, the program got discontinued. So now I'm stuck with 4 years of college, which is okay because college is fun. But after college, I plan to go straight into dental school because um, I don't see a reason for me taking gap year, but some people may take gap year because like they want to learn more about themselves or to improve their application. Um, so yeah, dentistry is what I'm going to do after college.
Coming into my freshman year from high school, like the plan was to go straight through because like Amanda, I was good at science in high school, but then when I came my freshman year, Penn really showed me like science is not as easy as like I thought it would be. So my goal for this year is honestly to figure out what I do want to do, like whether it's taking a gap year and going to medical school or if I have like completely different plans. So I feel like as a freshman, I haven't really reached that point where I know yet. So and I think that's still a good position to be in. There's really no rush in what you want to do. And that's what college is to figure out.
No, it's so true. Before you either entered the first program or before having your first research experience, how did what you thought research was change now that you've been 3 to 1 years involved?
Good question. I think graduating high school and entering Penn, I knew like I wanted to be involved in research. I thought research was cool. I kind of like has anybody like watched like podcasts of younger, like you know how like they're always out in the field or studying something like, and I just honestly thought I would get results fast. But then actually like being in lab and especially for a long time, I was in wet lab. What that basically means is like I was creating different like fluorescent proteins or constructs that would be like injected into embryos to see what would happen. I realized it's actually like kind of long and it's kind of like painful to actually get stuff to work. It didn't like deter my love for research at all, but I think it taught me to have like grace with myself because as a person, I think sometimes I want like instant results, which just isn't like realistic. And then I also learned like it's okay to ask for help because I think looking back at my freshman year self when I would like do specific experiments and they wouldn't work, I thought like it was a reflection of how much effort I was putting in. And then when they wouldn't work, I was just like, damn, am I just not trying hard enough? But it's just sometimes like things don't work. And I think looking back as a now like incoming senior, I think I've learned to like articulate myself and like recognize that it's okay to ask for help if I need it.
Absolutely.
For me, I learned that there is a lot of like many different forms of research. Like in high school, I did mechanical engineering research in temple engineering, where I pretty much just worked like fiber optics and how that can be used in like surgery and stuff. But in that lab, I learned that it was a bunch of math. And if I can do the math and I can do the physics behind it, I can get results pretty fast. But I realized that my strong suit is not in math. But when I came to college, I realized that I love biology a lot more because I like memorizing things. And I think it's cool how that's like how I'm functioning as a person. Um, and in my first lab, I dealt with microscopes. So all I worked with was microscope. The microscope that I used was able to count individual proteins and also like exactly how much organelles is within your cell, like how much mitochondria is there, how much lysosome is there. And then in my new lab, this is translational research, which is the one that I find the most enjoyable because right now I work in the dental school where I have patients, they come in and then I would test their status for HIV. I wouldn't collect their blood, but I would help collect their blood, their saliva sample, observe dentists, how they look at the patient's oral microbiome, their teeth health, their periodontic, and then I will have them like take a neurocognitive exam, and then I would use all of those data combined to pretty much like see how the numbers correlate with what type of genes they have, which I'm specifically looking at the APOE gene. So I feel like this is something that I can still do in the future when I become a dentist. Because as a dentist, that's going to be a lot of hands-on stuff. But if I were to ever pursue like a DMD, which is just MD, but for dentists, I can also pursue a PhD to have a more broader application of um, like research in terms of oral health, which is how APOE not just relate to neurocognitive um, status, but also like their oral health status.
Before joining a lab, I was in high school and I had done like a little kind of science program similar to this. And during that time, I feel like I hadn't really learned a lot because I was just being told what to do. But then after joining my lab my freshman year, I was kind of thrown straight into it. Um, I thought that my PI would never like actually interact with me. I thought I would just be talking to the other grad students in the lab and like have the same experience of like, here's the project, here are the steps, do this. But I think this experience has been really amazing because my PI is very hands-on. Like every morning he speaks to me and asks me what my plan is for the day. And he always makes sure to explain why exactly I'm doing what I'm doing. Like for example, when I'm making my samples, he asked me why am I using this buffer, why am I using this concentration? And I think when he asks me those questions, it really forces me to think about what I'm doing. And his main goal is to make sure that I'm coming to the lab and I can take what I'm doing and explain it to other people. And I think this practice is really useful because in first we have to do a symposium and we have to explain our posters to other people, and that has been helping me really know what each step means. And also another thing that I didn't expect in my lab to be working with machinery. I feel like I'm slowly becoming like an engineer in my lab. Like yesterday I set up a new machine by myself. And I think it really forces you to have critical thinking and patience as well, because when you're setting up something new that no one's ever used before, and you're the one making the protocol, you have to have patience, you have to be organized, and you have to like think about different ways to try new things. So I think being in a lab it's been really fun so far.
Are there any questions in the audience? I can think of a million if you can.
What did you like about wet lab versus
I think wet lab, like it honestly like trains you how to think like a biologist. I think a lot of times, like when you are in bio classes, it just seems like a bunch of like memorization, right? And it just doesn't make like sense. But I think being in the wet lab, I can appreciate like what the literature and research is telling me. So for example, throughout my lab, like my lab is a biophysics lab, so we study transcription, which is basically how your DNA makes mRNA and mRNA codes for proteins, and proteins like have like specific functions to actually create the constructs from like, okay, I need to get this PCR to work. Okay, now I have the gel, I can cut it out. Then from this gel, I'm actually going to like create the proteins that I can see, and I can actually see the results when we look at the embryos. I can see like, okay, this is like transcription happening within the cell. I think it made me appreciate more of the genetics behind the lab. And then now, like over the course of the summer, I've become more of like a dry lab person. I honestly do miss like the wet lab because it's just kind of like, I'm not a computer scientist. I don't really like to code, but I can appreciate the fact of like, oh, from the constructs that I've made in the wet lab, I'm able to code and actually analyze the data from the wet lab. So it makes me just much more appreciative. I think the only thing that I dislike from the wet lab is again like not having the instant results because sometimes like experiments don't work and you have to troubleshoot. And sometimes it's like, okay, is there something with my protocol? Or is it just like this specific thing that I'm trying to clone? To clone basically means to like make a construct. Is it like, oh, there's not enough overhangs? Oh, my primers aren't working. Oh, like, is it the TAE buffer? Is it my gel extraction? Is it my technique? Or is it the way I've actually done and designed the experiment that's an issue? And sometimes I think it can take a long time for something to work and you don't know why. Like the last thing I finished coding actually over the summer, and it was a thing of like it wasn't working for like 4 months, which is like the course of my junior year last semester. So I think you just need to give yourself grace when things don't work in the lab.
For me, I don't really have much to say, but in my current lab, I don't really do much of wet lab stuff other than DNA purification, which is from the blood sample that I collect from the patient, and then doing like PCR and genome typing. That's like pretty much all that I do. That's kind of wet lab.
I don't really have any dry lab experience because in my lab we work directly with blood, so and I don't have experience.
Any
When like choosing a project, do you guys go about it to like kind of solve like an issue and like figure out method how to, or like we need to explore like parts of code that haven't been looked at?
I think that depends on what type of like research you want to do. So basic science is when you really want to explore like what's going on and you're trying to answer questions that the field hasn't done before, right? Versus translational research, which is I think something that these two like do a lot more in their lab, is where you're trying to not only just explore but like apply it to like real life people, see like how it can have like an impact. So for me personally, with my senior independent research project, I think that's a little bit more translational where I'll be doing like single molecule tracking on like a specific protein that is implicated in Parkinson's disease called alpha-synuclein. And that I'm actually exploring more because no one in the field has done single molecule tracking on this particular protein. But I also know like I'm helping like patients with Parkinson's disease see if there can be like new treatments that can help them along the line.
And then I feel like the main thing that I couldn't really wrap my head around was what counts as a important project. Because sometimes I feel like what I'm doing is like it's useless, like it's never gonna benefit anyone. And then one thing that my mentor slash PI told me was that like you shouldn't think about your research project like not benefiting anyone, but it's the fact that you're contributing to something and that other people might use what you find out to then do something significant. So for me right now, I work with APOE and HIV and oral microbiome. Those individual topic has already been vastly researched. But like the relationship between, let's say, APOE and HIV hasn't really been explored that much. But they pretty much have the same function. Both of them causes neurodegenerative diseases. And the fact that nobody has looked at it is what I will play a role, which is to look at how a patient with both of these status is like going to impact their oral health or their neurocognitive health. And yeah.
I think a project can really come out of anything. Like the project that I've been working on all year, it was like passed down to me from somebody else who was previously in my lab who was working on it for like 4 years, and it was passed down to me. And then through that project, I kind of developed another question to start my own personal project. So we work with blood, and I don't know how to explain this, but blood has a P50 value, which is like it's basically the oxygenation in the blood. And over time, when blood is removed from the body, that value goes down. And that's like an issue because in blood banks, they hold blood there for 45 days. And then when people come in, they give them the blood that's there for the longest. So that value has gone down by a lot. And when I was working on the project that was passed down to me, I kind of raised this question to my PI. And then he asked me what I could personally do to see like how I can maintain that value. So that's like an example of how a project can just like come up. So I think like with a project, I think it's really cool to take on somebody else's project. There's no harm in like not creating your own question. And like they said, it's more about like your contribution to that idea.
Any other questions from the group? Are you guys involved in any extracurricular activities? And if so, what are they? And how do you balance your time?
So outside of research, I am a math TA. I also tutor for chemistry, math, and physics at Penn. I'm also a clinical volunteer, so I work in the hospital. On top of that, I also just read like upcoming like freshmen, like their college applications, and I help edit their essays a lot. So I basically have like a lot of jobs slash responsibilities. I think it's just having like the honest conversation with yourself about what can you handle and what can't you handle, and when you reach like your limit. I think junior year for a lot of people in college is like the brunt semester, I would say, like where it's like you're taking organic chemistry. Like for me personally, I was taking Orgo 2, Biochem, Calc 4, and I think one of my neuroscience classes. It was just a lot. And it was a conversation I needed to have like, okay, I need to stop one thing so that I know like I can excel. It's not that I can't like do this, I can't perform well, but it's just like I need to have a conversation with myself about your limit. And that's something that like Verbs honestly really helps with, because every single month we have like each cohort has their own individual mentor. So for me, that person is Mike. And it's just a conversation with Mike about, okay, like you're in research, but you're taking this heavy STEM load. Can you like handle it? And having the conversation of like, yes, I can handle it, but it's like if I know I have a midterm, I shouldn't like try to play around and like say like I can come into lab when I can't, right? And I think talking with Mike helped me like advocate for myself more in my lab, and also just like be honest with myself about what I can't handle. So in college, like you'll have those like mentors that will like help you along the way.
For me, I extremely value like my outside of school life, like going to the gym, going to Center City with my friends, or just playing board games with my friend. And like some non-academic clubs that I'm in includes like literally the gaming club, where we would literally go to like a gaming cafe near Penn and we'll just play games as students and just have fun. So I really value those times because during the school year it is so stressful. Like my transition from high school to college was like tremendous. I'm also from Philly, so I received the Philly high school education system. It was like way simpler compared to what college is like, where we just have class 40 minutes a day for 5 days a week. And that's like honestly nothing compared to college, because like everything is shortened into like 4 or 5 months. And then you have a midterm. I don't even know why they call it midterm when they give the exam every like couple of weeks instead of the middle of the school semester. So like we always have like study exam, study exam, study exam. It wasn't like high school where I know like an exam is coming up and I'll just study the day before and then do okay on it. So definitely in college, it has been extremely stressful. So I really need time outside of school to not be burnt out because like burning out is extremely real. And like when I first came to Penn as a freshman, I took on math, chemistry, biology my first semester, and then people were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I just want to get these classes out of my way so I don't have to stress in the future for dental school, whatever." But I was like low key extremely burnt out my freshman year. So my sophomore fall semester, I took like really easy classes just so I can like reconnect with friends that I didn't really talk to that I've made in my freshman year, and also just going out more. And that has like really helped me a lot in terms of my mental health. And then besides like that, some academic aspect includes like shadowing dentists because I need to have like a minimum hour, which is like 200 hours to be competitive. TAing for a biology course, um, and like taking on leadership role for academic clubs, like being the president of the pre-dental society, where I pretty much oversee all of the budgeting, all of the club events that's going to come up, talking with like students of Office of Student Affair, and like those type of things, managing those. But yeah, balance is definitely something that I learned in high school that I did not learn in, sorry, college that I did not learn in high school. Yeah.
Like as a freshman, I kind of fell into the trap of like wanting to join every like single free health club that there was on campus. And I did like join a lot of them because I was like afraid of like falling behind. Because as like a pre-health major, you kind of become close with like other pre-health people because you're in the same classes. And like hearing about all the other clubs that people were in, I wanted to join them as well. But then I found that I wasn't really making any meaningful contributions to these clubs. Like especially as a general member with club with like so many members, like there isn't really much to do. So I felt that like I should just leave. So that's like my goal that I'm working on this semester is to find meaningful things. And also being in a lab with people who have been through, like a lot of people are older than me, they've been through college. I asked them for like their experiences with things that they did really, and has been so helpful with finding opportunities to like volunteer and opportunities to shadow. Like I asked every single person in my lab, like the people that they had shadowed and like the good attendants to work with. So I feel like being in a lab is in that way has also helped me with like branching out of the Penn bubble and like going out into Philly and seeing like other opportunities out there. And in terms of like free time, like you said, burnout is very real. Like because you come in and you want to take all these hard classes because usually like you're the best at whatever like high school you went to, so you feel like you're prepared. But I think having a balance and being able to make friends with the people who are around you, like not just going to class, like obviously you go to class and focus, but like go to class and make communities with the people who are there so that when you're studying and when you're preparing notes and things, you have people to help you. Because I generally don't think I could have survived any of my STEM classes without the friends that I made in those classes. And also like going out to explore, like me and my friends like to take spontaneous trips out of Philly, like we went to Princeton, we go to other schools. And also like I go home a lot because my house is like in New York, so I leave as often as I can so that I can go back to my support system anytime I feel stressed. I always have to remember that college is not just like it's not a race and it's like all about my own learning. So going back to my support system is always very important.
Any last questions from the audience?
My senior year is actually really light. So the neuroscience department told me I could graduate early, like last semester. I just decided not to, and so I'll just be doing research over the course of my senior year, and I have to take one more class. So technically I'll be done with my major next semester, and then I'll just be doing research. So I think the way you plan out your schedule in college is very important. You have to recognize what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. And I think as a student, I've always been honest with myself. So like entering college, right? It's like chemistry during COVID. I know I wasn't really there. Like it wasn't serious. So and also like at Penn, like you take like an entrance math and chem exam. I did great in the math section. So I knew like, oh, my fall semester, I can handle taking 1400, I can handle taking bio, right? I knew if I added chemistry, it just wasn't going to make sense. It wasn't going to be feasible. And then I was just like, I think I thought strategically as to how to like protect my GPA, honestly. And then my spring semester, I started taking chemistry classes, right? And it's just a thing of like, okay, we're taking chemistry classes. Sophomore year, I'm like, okay, maybe I should try to take my physics class. I was also honest with myself about how did I like physics in high school? I hated it, right? So I entered like my physics class and like I was studying for the first midterm. I didn't even wait for the midterm score to come out. I had an honest conversation with myself. It was just like, you know, you didn't do well, just drop the class. And I think it's just a thing of like knowing yourself and knowing like when advice fits you best or not. And even though, yeah, I ended up taking physics the next semester, doing okay and doing fine. It's just a conversation of like, okay, what do you want to do? And then like I think junior year, my plan was still to like go straight through. And I took all of these classes at once. And then spring semester I think I finished like my pre-med requirements. And it's just a thing of like, I recently took the MCAT. I was like, this is a good score, but like, do you want to apply with this score? Is it like competitive for where you want to go? And just having the conversation of like, no, it's not. So when you build your schedule in college, it is important to like listen to your advisors, but it's also important to know yourself. If you know that you can handle a class and your advisor is telling you no, I would still say, hey, go ahead and still try the class because at the end of the day, you know yourself. If you're taking a class and your advisor is telling you like, hey, like, I think you should still try it out. It's like, okay, does it align with your goals? Are you the type of person where it's just like, will you be okay if you get like this grade in the class? And if you know yourself and you know that that's not really what I want, drop the class. It's like, again, have honesty with yourself. And at the end of the day, I think I am grateful for my schedule because my senior year would be pretty light. I don't really be stressing that much, but continuously have the conversation with yourself in your STEM classes. I think that that's so important.
What was your MCAT experience?
Don't do this. I studied for it in like less than 2 months. And like I ended up like doing well, but it's just a thing of like I was working 2 jobs. I was also a full-time student and I was like studying for it. So it was just like a lot. And then I got the score and I was just like, again, it's like a score that you can't apply with. But it's just kind of like, you could probably do better. Just like, again, and it's just like a conversation I have with myself. It's like, considering that you were doing all these things and considering that you didn't like actually take the time that you needed to, like with the score, be proud of like what you got, but also, you know, you can do better. So at that point, I was just like, okay, I will do better. And it's also a thing of like, I kind of self-taught myself. So I know now, like, okay, maybe I should be using like more resources and stuff like that. But it's just a learning curve, I think.
Are you gonna retake it?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna retake it sometime in my senior year of winter. So probably in like January. Yeah, I think I will.
Okay, last question. Do you have any final advice to give to the audience if you were in their shoes?
Wait, what grade are you guys in?
I'm a rising senior.
Seniors,
Rising
juniors. Enjoy high school. Like I would say, like enjoy high school, like live in the moment. I know you guys are getting ready to gear up for like college applications. Know that like regardless of like where you go, like you are worth it. And like looking around this room, like seeing like so many people of color and seeing so many girls here, especially, just know that just because like you feel like something that doesn't mean like you don't deserve to be in that space because you do deserve to be in that space and like regardless of what happens, like you will do well in life. When you enter college, learn, explore, like make genuine connections and make friends with people that genuinely care about you and care about your progression and also like keep that in the back of your mind. Like you're going to be just fine.
This is a mix of high school and college students.
Mix of high school and college. And like same advice, basically.
The advice that I'll give out is kind of like a double-edged sword, which kind of benefits me, but also not really benefit me, which is to be organized. Like everyone tells you to be organized, and I was like, okay, I'll be organized. So before even coming to college, but I already know which college I'm gonna go to, so I like researched the heck out of my major. This is the class I'm gonna take my freshman fall, then this is the class I'm gonna take my freshman spring, sophomore, junior, senior, and then I was following that track my freshman and my entire freshman year, which is to take Gen Chem 1 and Gen Chem 2, and then immediately take Orgo 1. Well, I didn't realize that I was going to be burnt out my freshman year. So I did not take Orgo 1, Organic Chemistry 1, the next semester. Instead, I pushed it back to the spring semester instead, which like completely puts me in a different trajectory because I wanted to graduate early. So because of the thing that I experienced in freshman year, now my entire plan that I planned out is like completely off track. But the thing is, I learned that it is completely okay because like I still have one more year ahead of me, and I redesigned my plan for the courses I want to take, and it turns out I'll be just fine. And the track that I'm following right now, I might be able to study abroad my senior year. And one thing I would say is definitely study abroad. If you have the opportunity to study abroad, go abroad. I feel like going abroad is going to be like not just an experience for you to grow intellectually, but also for you to grow culturally. Because meeting new people from another culture is really gonna help your ability to think and also converse with other people, like help you benefit a lot, especially like in a lab setting where many people come from international setting or like from other states or just like from different cultural backgrounds. So I think being able to study abroad is gonna be really nice. So I'm trying to finish all of my major requirement and also all my prereqs so that I can go abroad and just study whatever I want because sometimes they're stingy. They want you to go abroad and study things only in your major. So I want to complete a major so that I can study whatever I want, just have fun. But again, be organized to a certain degree, but also be realistic with yourself because you just have to know that it is okay if your plan doesn't go right. It's always nice to have a plan B or maybe even plan C, plan D, as long as you're acknowledging the fact that if none of your plan goes accordingly, it is not the end of the world. Everything will be okay, and always reach out to people who will be there to support you. They can literally be anyone, your professor, your friends, your parents, like anyone. Always reach out. It is okay to reach out to people for help, even if you think it is like the smallest thing ever.
My advice would be, well, in terms of being in college, my advice would be to read the curriculum difficulty and also rate your professor and course review so you don't end up taking terrible classes because I took one of the worst classes like to ever exist in my freshman year first semester. It was Bio 1121.
Oh my God.
Genuinely, like I wanted to quit, but I stayed. But I would say read your curriculum to like know what exactly you're setting yourself up for. And I think also take fun classes because the drive to like finish your pre-med requirements is always like haunting me because everyone's like, I'm almost done. And also Penn has this like annoying thing where it like shows you how much of like your degree like you've gotten through, how many classes you've taken. It's really annoying because it makes you feel like you want to rush. I would say take fun classes because like when you look, there's so many opportunities that like schools have to offer you. Like for example, we have like a global seminar where you can literally go abroad for like a writing class and just like learn new things about other cultures. So I think like being pre-med or like being pre-health or whatever you choose to be doesn't mean you have to just take those classes and focus on that throughout your college experience. Like you still have a fun experience though.
Well, thank the three of you so much for your input. And thank you all for having us here.